So everybody should be able to see my screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I did a couple of things which was a little different. So my soft skills, and everyone can still see my screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my soft skills now has the ability to establish credibility and rapport. I just changed it up a little bit. I think this person was bilingual, so I put that on there as well. I normally would have a volunteer service, my volunteer activities, at the bottom as well. Right? So the section normally would have my volunteer activities here. But what I did, I changed that and I put it here. Okay? That way it looks like it has more job responsibility. It just flushes out more. The individual gave me his skill set and I just added it in. And so, like I said, this is just suggestions. You can take it, you can run with it or whatnot. So I have my software and programming languages, my operating systems background, my security and networking background, and everything else. Here's my work experience that I need to flush out. So that's the last thing that I need to flush out. But so far, it looks pretty good. Okay. Now, what I'm going to also do is show you the other stuff. The stuff that he had originally was in black. So I just kept that there so he can see the difference, mixing in his verbiage with my verbiage. He can check the present tense, the past tense of my sentences to make sure everything's okay. And this is down to one page. Now, another thing that when we were on a call, we were talking about keyword searches. And we were talking about, well, how do you get into that keyword search? And we were talking about the skill set. In that section, you put stuff in there or under the job description, right? It's usually that you can be flagged. And then Al and Nick had something very unique that they said. They said what they would do is they will put in a text box. And when they put in that text box, what they would do is put in the verbiage of the job, roles and responsibilities, put that in a text box, change the text box to white from the font perspective, and then that way, all the keywords that the person is looking for, that the hiring manager is looking for, it'll get flagged because it's in a resume, and then they change it to a PDF. So I never heard that before, never saw it, but that is a very good idea. So what we're going to do now is actually do that. So that way you can get a glimpse of, well, what does it look like? How do you do that? You know, what's the steps? And you see that the resume is one page. And since I have this space underneath my soft skills, which was a part of originally was my volunteer actions, what I'm going to do is use that space to put my keywords in. So let's say, for example, I'm going to do my text box. I'm going to go to this draw text box so I can put it where I want. So now I have my text box. So now let's say I'm trying to find a job, or I found the job. So we're going to go to Indeed. We're going to look at a couple of job descriptions, and we're going to paste it in there. Okay, so this is a nice little candidate. It has the penetration testing, Windows management, Active Directory, group policy and objects, Exchange, SharePoint, regulatory stuff. So we're just going to use this as an example. So now I have it copied, I have it pasted in. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my font. I'm going to change it to 8. And you don't have to change the font and the formatting of it. I'm just doing it because I just want to, out of force of habit, I want everything to look the same. Okay? And now what I'm going to do, I have it highlighted. I just change the color to white. Okay? Now what I'm going to do, I still have the borders around. So I did a no line and it's gone. Okay? Now the problem is this. I don't know if you guys see it. You know, those red lines, because in Word it tries to tell you, grammatical errors and this and that. So this is the reason why when you put it in PDF, all that should go away. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to save it as a PDF. So this is the PDF version of it. So you notice the grammatical errors that Microsoft Word thought it was there with those red and blue lines, all that stuff is gone. Well, you don't see it. It's still there. You just don't see it. So now when you send that resume in and it gets into that database, all the information is going to be flagged, the keyword search, because it's going to figure out it's going to flag the keywords that was in the actual profile of the roles and responsibilities. Okay? Now, you still need to have the mindset that, okay, you're getting flagged. Your resume is going to be in that particular pile. Right? Now, you're going to have to study, like we talked about 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, researching out of everything in the roles and responsibilities, because some of those things you may not have. Right? You may not know SharePoint. You may not know Link. You may not know some of those regulatory frameworks. So this is the part where that research comes in to figure, okay, what are the things I need to study and know that I don't know, that is not on my resume, that I can speak to it. And then on my resume, they're still going to see my skill set section. But it's light, right? It's not the same as a job description. But you do have like the Windows environment, the Linux, the Active Directory, the group policies. You have frameworks on there. So it's a very good starting point. Does that make sense? And then that's the section, because if you don't have any experience, right? At least you can put what we do on Sundays and even Tuesdays and Thursdays to say, okay, I am a network and Linux administrator because I gotta get my own stuff up and running and working. So you are a lead engineer and deploying your remote virtual environment consisting of, all the things that we covered in class or whatever you have in your home lab. Okay? So this gets you that work history. So that's one of the reasons why I moved it from this section over here to under the work experience or work history. So it just flows a little bit better. So when you look at his resume, he doesn't have just one IT job. He has two. Okay? And just because it's a volunteer, look, a lot of people in the InfoSec community, they like people that volunteer. And so it just kind of adds to the mystique of what you're doing. And if this person has been, is basically going to 2022 now. So he's been volunteering for 2 years for free. So if you pay him some money, he's going to be there on time as well. And that's the mindset of a hiring manager. If he shows up consistently for free to learn and to perfect his craft, then he has a passion about it, and he'll have that passion will roll over into his work environment. All right, makes sense? So what we didn't do, and for sake of timing, we'll see how this goes. We still need to flush out the help desk job, right? To get more specific dealing with products. Mobile support, that's fine, but it goes a lot further by saying, okay, mobile support meant iPhones, Android devices, Windows. I don't think Windows make their phones anymore, but it goes a little bit further. The Active Directory, that's good. Did you troubleshoot or administer group policies? Do you understand WMI? Those things. Remote PC, well, what software? You had the VPN. Were you using AnyConnect? Were you using Palo Alto? Were you using Cisco, Juniper, Pulse, Duo? And then how did you update the systems? Were you just using Microsoft or some homegrown application that you were using? The same way with the PC installations and support. Were you support 2, support 3? So in there, I kind of put a little verbiage, provided global support through troubleshooting the hardware and software problems, installing software and updates, and provided research on a variety of technical support solutions. Sounds nice, just wordy. Served as level 2 support for customers. I need a period there. And provided technical direction and coaching to level 1 support technicians. It's just kind of fluff, but roles and responsibility of what that person may have done. All right, so remember, these are just suggestions I get with the individual, and then we just kind of walk through. He takes out stuff or adds stuff, and this is just the template to get that flow going. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then once we get everything together, we save it as a PDF, and all this stuff in the text box will disappear.
So a quick question. In this
Yes,
case,
sir.
in this case, you're taking away the bullet points and you're adding the green text?
Correct. So everything, that's a good point. So everything was bullets, right? And the thing about it was, I wanted to get it to at least one page, and it may get over one page, but if it got more than one page, at the bottom, my references available upon request, underneath the T, was cut off. So another thing I did, and this kind of goes back to your statement, is I played around with the margins, and I don't know why it popped up. So it's not an int at the top, it's not an int at the bottom or the sides. I tweaked the margins to get more stuff on it to be that one page. Now, like I said, if you have more information and you're trying to sell yourself, that's fine. But for this particular purpose, I thought it was pretty cool to get it down to one page. Because sometimes if it's in the middle of the page, on that second page, sometimes it just doesn't look right. You know, if it's just at the top, reference available upon request is at the top, it just doesn't look right to me. So I always wanted to either be one page or half a page of that second page. And if you can't make it, that's fine. You know, it's just a resume. But you already got your foot in the door because they're looking at it. So I do tweak the margins. All right. So I'm going to draft somebody, and let's say Mr. Martinez. If you were doing mobile support at your job, what type of devices would you handle? Is it iPhones? Is it Android?
Yeah, iPhone and Android, specifically working with, different, with mostly with like Exchange, and in like the Active Directory. So, a lot of times with things like that, the iPhones, the Exchange, it'll lock up their Active Directory account. So if it's locked up on their phone, it locks them up on their computer. So it kind of actually becomes a big headache. Androids, can be a little bit different, because a lot of companies use different types of Androids too. With Apple, it's pretty straightforward, and that's a big thing with Apple as well.
Now, let me ask you, do you have an MDM system, a mobile device management system as well?
No.
Okay. So with Active Directory, is there any Active Directory tools that you guys use at the top of your head? Say like WMI. And I'm no Active Directory guru, dealing with group policies, creating user accounts, anything of that nature, or checking user accounts.
A lot of customers use like Okta Verify, to kind of get into a lot of their Exchange accounts. Trying to think of off the top of my head too, kind of drawing a blank.
Okta Verify is MFA, right? Multi-factor. If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, it's a multi-factor. I'm also kind of off the top of my head too. There's other ones like Duo. They also use, for the phones, they do like MFA. For, I'm not sure if they use Android, but they also use the iPhone for MFA, for like VPN, authenticator.
So they use Okta for. Did I spell it right? OCTIV.
Oh, it's OKTA. Okta.
Oh,
OKTA, yeah.
oh, that's right. You already have them. And Okta does VPN as well.
No, not necessarily. No, I don't think they use it with the VPN. I think it's mostly used with accounts, within like Exchange. I'm not
Okay.
100% if it's used with VPN. I've
Okay.
used it specifically for they basically have like tiles for Okta, and it's for like exchange accounts and other kinds of accounts, mainly for the exchange accounts though, for like Outlook and things like that, so they can get verified for
Okay.
like MFA.
Now, when you remote in, what software do you use, or is it all just through the tiles that's in the for the applications that are published to your desktop or through that portal?
Remoting in, you could there's different companies use different things. So in most cases, it's TeamViewer. Some cases, some companies actually will just use Teams to kind of look, and or Zoom.
Now, I'm assuming that's Microsoft Teams or Cisco Teams.
Microsoft Teams, yeah.
All right. And the ticketing system that you use, is it ServiceNow or Remedy or something?
I use a few different ones. ServiceNow is a big one. Jira, also. I think it's called Service Management.
And what was the other one? Ajira or something?
Jira, just Jira.
Okay.
ServiceNow is definitely the biggest player that I use.
Okay. Most people use Exchange. I know you guys aren't using Lotus Notes, or I hope not. Microsoft Word, that whole suite. So I'm just gonna do Microsoft. Oh, 365. Okay. How many people on your team?
Um, I would say about 25, but we all don't service the same amount of same customers. So we have a big client list of companies. I would say around, I think it's about 30 to 35 companies that we service.
Fortune 500, Fortune 100. You don't know, or do you know?
Some
It
some
varies.
can be very, yeah, it varies. We service many different, some Fortune 500, some very local, and some kind of international teams. Some are much bigger companies, but we just service a portion of their IT department.
I have a question,
Yes.
if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, this is for whoever this is. Then the certification portion. So all of these are in progress, as in you are currently studying for all of these certifications right now?
For me, are you
Yeah,
asking me?
yeah. Whoever this resume is for, or is this just like a generic thing? I'm sorry, I came in a little bit late.
Right. No. So good question. So there are people that study for multiple certifications at once. So it's not uncommon. So I
Mm-hmm.
did my CCNA and CCNP all at the same time. It's just because once you get in that study mode, depending upon how you study. So say
Gotcha.
for example, years ago the CCNA was just one book. Your CCNP that was 4 books. So what I would do each day, I would have Monday through Friday I had a book per day, and then on the weekends it was kind of a free for all training. As far as reading and studying. So a lot of it just kind of depends upon um, your style of learning, so you won't get bored.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
but that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure if it was okay because I was in the same situation where I was literally like the first three certifications you see right there. I was studying for all three at the same time, and I was just wondering if that was ever okay to do. I mean, um, I did not put it on my I did not put it on my at the time. I didn't put it on my resume because um, I did not. I felt like I didn't because at the time I didn't have. I was in the process of. I was in a situation where I didn't have experience, right? So I didn't want it to come off like I was not telling the truth, but that is literally what I was doing. And I wasn't sure if that was okay to do. So I did not put it on there unless I earned it.
Right.
But
And
yes.
some people do that. Even on my resume, I have my failed attempts on there.
Oh,
You know,
yeah?
when I did my CCIE, because most people don't pass the CCIE, right? It's a 20% pass ratio. So for me, that was a badge of honor to say, man, I failed it, because if I'm being interviewed by somebody that's a CCIE, he knows that you don't get it the first time. There's some people that do, but most people take 3 or 4 times. So it was
Oh,
more so of a topic of discussion when I'm sitting there with that person and they say, oh, I see you failed. Yeah. And they'll say, well, I failed too. It took me 2 or 3 times to get it. Or when that person that does get it on this first time, they'll be like, man, it was a miracle. I got it. And that's just a conversation piece. And even when you have multiple certifications in progress, it still starts as a conversation piece when you are in that interview, because the person may be just like you. How are you doing that? And they can go into their study habits. Monday is A+, Tuesday is my network plus.
so
Wednesday.
how did you put the failed one? How did you list that one?
I just did. You see how he had like CCNA in progress. I had like CCIE routing and switching reading passed. CCIE routing and switching lab failed multiple attempts.
Oh.
And I wanted to put the multiple attempts to know that, okay, this guy's a go-getter, or he's just glutton for punishment. Either or. Um, so it gives the person kind of a mindset that, okay, I'm not going to stop. Once I'm focused on something, I'm at it.
Oh, that is good. Okay. That is very good. I never thought about it that way.
I'd
Yeah.
like to also add also like, so for me,
Yeah.
personally, like the way I look at it is, like if you look at someone that has the A+ certification and they haven't even, received that certification yet, and also, Security Plus, those are like pretty wide areas apart, as far as knowledge base goes. And so for me, I would say that having both of those from A+ certification, Network Plus, Security Plus, it leads into that conversation of I know what I want to do, and this is what I'm doing to get there. And just to kind of touch on what Otha was saying is that um, going through those different study habits as well of touching on everything. As you're studying, you look at A+ and Network Plus, and Security Plus, and you kind of go back and forth with both of those things. I mean, they bounce back and forth, and you can look into a Network Plus and say, "Oh, I don't really understand what's kind of going on here." Then you look at Security Plus, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that from Network Plus," and now it makes more sense. So as far as like study habits goes, that helps me out in the long run with a bunch of the different certifications too, as well. So, but with A plus certification, I mean, me doing help desk support, um, honestly, I don't even really need the A plus certification because I think I would be able to get an A plus certification job as far as like a tier one help desk as well. So, but it's good to have that on there. I feel like because it leads into a conversation of your goals and this is what I'm willing to do and this is what I want to do in order to get there. Just so you're very transparent with any employer as well.
Awesome.
Yep. Any other questions? Definitely good questions and definitely good viewpoints.
So, question. I do have questions. I'm sorry. I'm a
No, go
question
ahead.
person.
That's good.
So, I see you put in TeamViewer, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, what do you call it? Microsoft Office 365. Are you referring to? I guess this is for this. I guess this is a resume for a help desk person.
Right. So when you look at the top line, so this is the work experience. I'm sorry, this is the job title. They were help desk technician, but they only had 3 bullet points on their resume for the help desk technician job. So they only had the mobile support, the first 2.
Gotcha.
Right. And so they had a third one, and the third one was kind of like providing national, international support. So what I did, I just changed that until this sentence here.
Gotcha.
Right. So,
Gotcha.
but what I wanted to do was to flush out more information, the technologies that they touch, so I can add it to the work experience and then bring it up and add it to the software and programming languages as well.
Gotcha.
Because sometimes, a lot of times, when we create a resume, we don't know. We create the resume when we're looking for a job, but we don't maintain it, right? So sometimes we forget what we're doing, or we forget. We minimize the stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis to say, okay, it may not be interesting.
Yeah.
So when I was asking, okay, the Android, the iPhone exchange, I'll flush that out in more detail. But okay, ticketing systems, because it's multiple customers, they have multiple ticket systems. So that shows an organizational skill in itself. And then how many accounts do you have? I'm covering 20, customer list of 35 customers. Each customer may have, an organization may have 500 people, 100 people, right? So we'll have to word that in there a little bit, better.
Yeah.
The Okta is key because now a lot of people are doing what they call VPN-less. They don't want to have a VPN. So what they're doing, they're giving individuals what do you call it? Like the Okta, we use Duo. So what they're doing, they're giving individuals the applications that they're supposed to be using because it's in the cloud. So I don't have to VPN to my corporate network. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my cloud solution, whatever application URL, and then Okta is going to ask me to verify myself. Simple like RSA with the tokens back in the day. So that's why I put the Okta Verify MFA down below, and it was already at the top of the software programming languages, but we'll flush it out more. Gotcha. And then what I probably end up doing for the networking background, since it just popped up in my head, I'm going to put VPN-less. All right, so I'm gonna put VPN remote access. All right, and now I don't know if there's an apostrophe in there or not, or capital L, but we'll figure that out. Okay. And like I said, I want to go through this exercise of me flushing out stuff so you can see how I do it. And then that way people don't have to always ask me, hey, can you take a look at my resume? Can you help me out? I still don't mind doing it, but now you just see my process, my method to my madness. Both videos are posted on the YouTube link as well. I just sent that out today or yesterday. There was the one that we did, the panel. I didn't post that yet. I may not post that as well. It just didn't record right. But at least the research of the job is posted. And then our first stab at going through the resume is posted as well. Okay, I'll make sure I post it in the link, but this is it. It says your first impression is your resume, and then it's how to research your job. So I will also email out this newer template as well. That way you can have an idea of how to tweak suggestions for your resume. So I'll email the template. Now I also will have, I normally would have like a threat research on it as well. I didn't include it because I already had this one in it. So in the previous template, it will have something called like independent threat researcher, and then it will have a volunteer activity on the side over here. So when I email the new template, it will still have the volunteer activities on the side, and it'll still have the independent research under the work experience, so you guys can have that verbiage as well. Okay, it's just for this particular resume for this person, I didn't need the independent threat research because he already had a job for a help desk technician, and then he was already pretty savvy user with the technology for a virtualized environment. Okay, any questions?
Both of this is Ron Gregory. I don't really have a question, but I think your idea was a good one when you mentioned listing the failed attempts at your CCIE. I think that shows a lot of ambition and determination on your side. Most people wouldn't do that because it's kind of like they don't want to put it on their resume until they successfully pass. But I think that's a really good idea, and it does show a lot of determination and grit on your part.
You know, it's just like when people who graduate from college and they put the GPA on their resume, and they may have a 3.5, you know, or 3.7, you're on the dean's list. But if you've been interviewed by someone who has a 4.0, he's like, oh, this guy's dumb. You know, he's a 3.5, 3.7, right? But then if you have a 4.0 on your resume, and now you're being interviewed by a guy who's like, oh, they're only book smart. You know, so it's like, what should I do first? Tomato, right?
It can cut either way.
It can cut either way, right? But with the CCIE, because, you know, to me, it's like a badge of honor. Because literally when I was studying for it, I would get together with guys who had, oh, you did 5 attempts, you did 4 attempts, right? And then you start figuring, well, how did you study for that? When you do meet that person that do get it, you know, what was your experience like? And it's like a support system, sure. You know? So like you said, you can go either way, but I wanted to make sure that I had CCIE on my resume, so when it was flagged, that it would be flagged by whatever keyword search. Oh yeah, he's a CCIE, and then when they look at the resume, oh, he just passed the written and failed the lab, but he has CCIE knowledge. You know, 20% pass ratio. And usually, as you get in your career, most of my jobs that I've gotten, it got to a certain point where they were all referrals. It was somebody that knew somebody that knew me, you know, and you'll get to that point where it's somebody that knows the work that you do. So it's important to do in meetup groups, you know, and see stuff, because now when jobs open up, they'll say, oh, I know a person.
Yeah.
You know, I know Rick, I know Nick, I know Ron, I know Ernest, you know, I know Rasul. They're good guys. You know, we're all in the same meetup group together. So those are the things that actually help out a lot. You know, now it's just anything that's green, and even the stuff that's in red, I'm just going to turn it all black to make the color looks the same. Check my fonts, check my, make sure my formatting, all that stuff is there. And then the resume is done.
So a quick question. So for this resume, for this particular candidate here, are we looking at a security analyst position, or like what type of positions would this resume kind of fit into based on the background of the individual here?
Right. Good question. So, and let me start off by saying you can have multiple resumes, right, geared toward multiple types of jobs. But the way this resume is reading to me, it's a security analyst, working in the SOC, or cyber analyst. It kind of depends upon that job description, but definitely a SOC analyst. 1, 2, somebody's dealing stuff with the cloud because they have Ansible on here as well. So yeah, and AWS experience. So it just kind of depends, but leaning toward that SOC analyst as well. I didn't know if the person has experience with firewalls on it, but as we talked about getting that research in that job description, if you wanted to go, if they're familiar with PFSense, then that goes into that category for firewalls. Right. And I think it had the PFSense in it as well. And then, look, it's nothing wrong. Like I said, it's difficult sometimes to promote yourself. So there's nothing wrong if you know the title of your actual job to put it in there and see what other people think about your job. So this is a threat analyst. And the person could say they dealt with PFSense. They're talking about FTK, Encase, Symantec, McAfee. Now the person is drawing in their mind, I've been troubleshooting that. The penetration testing tools that they've played around with Metasploit or Backtrack, or this helps to get those juices flowing. And it's okay to, at one point, I would spend time looking at job descriptions for my job. And the reason that I do that is because I want to make sure that I know what somebody else wants. So it keeps me, ground to the ear. And this is what I mean. So say, for example, my global search is going to be, anywhere. So what I'm going to do is look up Cisco, ICE, and Firepower. And when I look at the jobs, it came up with 190. So now what I'm going to do, I'm looking at these jobs, right? And I see the Cisco ICE. So now I need to know, okay, what other technologies are actually needed for that particular job? So I see something dealing with Active Directory and group policy. I see VPN, DNS, NAT. So my thing is, okay, if I know Cisco ICE, an add-on or something else that would be good for me to know would be, how do I handle and manage or know dealing with Active Directory and group policy, right? So I'm constantly seeing what other people are looking at to make sure, okay, I need to know this stuff because that's what they're looking for in the industry. And so that's a way for me to stay in step with the industry by looking at job descriptions. I like my job. I'm not trying to get a job. I just need to know I have a foundation, but what I need to add to it to make it good. So say, for example, Rasul is doing Wireshark. So if I want to do packet analysis, and if I do a job, I do an Indeed search on it, it's going to come up with Wireshark. So if I want to know packet analysis, I got to know Wireshark, right? If I do another search for packet analysis, it may come up with Gigamon. So I need to know Gigamon and Wireshark. So those things is just adding on to what I need to know to make me more appealing at my job, right? So if I look at this one, it says Firepower, ICE, has the payload packet analysis, and Splunk. So now I have to think about, okay, I need to make sure that I need no Splunk, because that's going to ingest everything from my Firepower and from my Cisco ICE as well. And then I still need to know that packet analysis. And somebody told me today about SANS has a packet analysis platform. So this is a full packet analysis. And this is what Al told me earlier today. I can't even pronounce it. Archimi or something like that. So this is something from SANS, right? But you get the pattern, right? Okay, I know my job description. I know what I do. But say, for example, if I want to stay current, or if I want to see what my customers are using, okay, if they know Firepower, they know ICE, then they probably know Splunk. Then I need to know Splunk so I can talk that language of Splunk with my customers. And I see stuff with the cloud, right? And you see it has like data center firewalls, WAF, web application firewalls. So you just kind of have to figure out, okay, when I'm trying to set out my learning schedule to figure out what's my learning path, I have to stay steady in my foundation, but I still need to incrementally learn new things. What I need to learn. This is the best way to see what the people are hiring. And you don't have to be necessarily looking for a job. You're doing this internally to make sure that you are staying up on your game. Because you don't want to be, oh yeah, I know firewalls in and out, but you don't know the cloud or how to put a firewall in the cloud, right? It doesn't go well. Or, yeah, I know Exchange, but I don't know how to put Exchange and manage that in the cloud. You know, people look at you crazy. Like, you didn't update your skill set. You're still doing old stuff, right? So you all constantly want to update your skill set. And the best way to do that is look at the skills and the requirements for a job for your same position and say, okay, I need to learn this stuff. That way you can keep a job. Make sense?
Hey, Otha, quick question. And I don't know if you had touched on it from any of your previous sessions, but have you talked about the applicant tracking system, or ATS? So you talk about pulling down your resume, being pulled down looking for keywords, but some people never know why they might be qualified for a job and never get those hits, or you hear those individuals saying, man, I can't get a recruiter to call me, or I can't find a job. And it's because um they probably not hitting everything on the applicant tracking system, or that keyword search that you always refer to. And they have free ATS online scanners where you can upload your resume to, to see how well your resume, is doing when it comes to that particular search that you was referencing.
So I'm glad you're on the call because I've actually never even heard of that. So this is good. So let's look it up.
I'm throwing one in the chat. So while Otha is doing that right there, earlier in the discussion, he was talking about keyword searches and having that stuff on your resume. But the question is even if you don't know about keyword searches and or how do recruiters and organizations get your resume, so it's all done electronically, so that when you throw your resume up on Indeed or Monster or something like that, um, the applicant tracking system, what it does is it looks for those keywords. And I'm just going to use it as an example. So like for soft skills, if it's looking for team player, do you have team player on your resume? If it's looking for um, excellent communicator or Microsoft Office suite or ITIL. And the more of those things that you have on your resume, the easier it makes for your resume to get pulled down in different individual systems and stuff like that. So Otha got his screen sharing right now. So there you go.
So thank you, Rasul, for sharing.
Job scan. I think job scan that I always won, but the problem that I think I have with that is there's like a limited amount of how many times you can use it. Is like it's free for a certain amount of time, and then after that they're expecting you to pay. So that's one that folks like to recommend a lot, but they don't tend to tell people that, yeah, it's free, but it's only free for a certain amount of time. And then after that, they want you to get their paid version.
The good thing about this is it's definitely a good way to check. But if you go through, right, and if you put on your resume, you know how we did the job description in a text box and made it font white so you couldn't see it. And if you
Yeah.
test that out on one of these, job sites, I haven't done it because I just found out about it today. And if it comes up with a good match, then you automatically know in your back of your head that, okay, this method works. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't necessarily have to join up for a site because, look, it's going to always be flagged because I'm putting an entire job description on my resume, but nobody else can see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a good way to determine what section of that job description that you have. You paste it in there, you paste your resume in there, and then scan and see the results.
And
Right?
also the importance of doing this too, about what Otha was saying about looking at duty descriptions, so that you can continue to update your skill set. You may have a pre-COVID resume on Indeed right now that you've never updated, and it's been pulled down. So oftentimes this is why you might see somebody reply back to you and say, send me your updated resume, or they might attach your resume as part of a description saying, hey, I think you'll fit this role. And it might be from a job that you don't even work no more, or at least an old resume. So the importance of updating your resume and doing stuff like this is very important, because they also have your resume can get pulled down, but if somebody pop more keyword searches than you do, then your resume kind of get flushed to the bottom. So if you're ever looking on LinkedIn for some of those individuals that have premium, you might see your skills, you have 7 out of 10 qualifications for this job, or you got 5 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, so the higher your number, the better your selection. The lower your number, it's not going to look good for you.
And the thing about it is that it may seem like a lot of work, but it pays off on the tail end, because that first impression that you're having, you're showing them, okay, I'm doing my due diligence.